It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Wow, what a story over the weekend I came across. And it's one of these things where you go, it's a joke. It's, you know, is it April Fool's? Is someone pulling my leg? Or is this just a one-off kind of thing? But the line that grabbed my attention, a mother talking of her child. We are so deeply invested into making sure that that child becomes a wonderful Nazi. Yeah, an Ohio couple known as Mr. and Mrs. Saxton, not their real names, because evidently they're not that invested in it. They have been running this dissident homeschool program that has about 2,400 members. And it's all about getting good Nazi curriculum out to the children. Because, you know, for instance, on MLK Day, the line that they want the children to learn, that it's up to the parents to make sure that the parents understand and teach the children that King was deceitful, dishonest, riot inciting. He was a riot inciting Negro who actually was the face of a movement which ethnically cleansed whites out of urban areas and precipitated the anti-white regime that we are now fighting to free ourselves from. Yeah, this is what they're teaching their children. They're encouraging meetup groups. They're having pool parties. Good ethnic cleansing kind of stuff. Demanding that they only hang around with other crazy radical white supremacists. But here's the thing. This is what gets me. And as I'm reading through the story of this couple that lives in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, which is right near Cedar Point, a great fun place. I lived in that area for a little while. Good, decent people. They look like normal people. Members of the Masons Club, participants in the community. Look on the outside. But wow. And you look at the hatred, the anger. It's the same stuff that you would have expected to see, 100 years ago. It's the same kind of hatred that's been bubbling up. And look, this is the Trump effect. This has made this stuff more okay in certain circles. And it's frightening, especially over the weekend, as we talked about the murder of a black man by 5 black police officers. Race relations in this country, a real problem. And when you have this kind of stuff that goes on, where you have this kind of anti-Semitism, this kind of racism, we're in a scary moment. And for everybody who thinks, no, everything's just fine. No, everything's just fine. There's just a handful of them. I don't know. Because when you looked at some of the comments and some of the stuff that goes in there, wow, we're at a frightening moment. And this is why I come to, these kind of things keep popping up. Now, I've always been against homeschooling. I've always said it's child abuse. Most of it is done on the religious front. We want to promote Christian warriors who are going to go out and whatever that mindset is. But this too, this tearing us apart. Now, I grew up in an era where we were talking about the melting pot. All of us came here from different places. All of us, love this country, and all of us, believe in this country, and want to be Americans. And yet I see this kind of stuff, this hatred, and it's frightening. And what's interesting to me is, while the people who are doing this, and again, it goes back to what I've always said. it's that thing my mother used to say. If someone's pointing their finger at you, you got three fingers pointing back at them. So if they're accusing you of doing something, they're probably doing it 3 times as bad. And this is that. We hear all the time, they're trying to indoctrinate the children with that theory about race that's critical, or they're trying to indoctrinate the children with the drag shows. When the reality is, you want to talk about indoctrination. We're going to hand an infant an AR-15. We're going to have Nazi school curriculum for elementary students. And as I was reading through this story, and I was thinking about it, because again, these are people who you would think they're just good old-fashioned, good old American folk. And the hatred that bubbles up there, the jealousy, the anger, it's quite incredible. Now, I come across it a lot. My email box gets some pretty vile stuff. But it reminded me of the woman I met in Erie when we were doing our Working Class Heroes tour. And she was standing outside with this giant, with the word F Biden printed on it. And I had to go up and ask her, because there were kids walking up and down the street. I had to ask her, what do your children think of you doing this? And she had the nerve to tell me, well, she didn't say it. I go, much worse, you're standing here holding it. Complete disconnect. And then she began to lecture me about how her 13-year-old was smarter than me on politics, and that he would put me in my place. And maybe that's so. But what 13-year-old should be in this kind of anger, hate-filled kind of politic? 13-year-old should be playing ball in the park. 13-year-olds should be enjoying their childhood instead of becoming a Christian warrior on the front lines of the race wars, which is what these folks are trying to do. You see all these people going to school board meetings. That's indoctrination. That kind of hatred is wow. And the question I keep coming back to, there's a guy, there are a couple of people who live around my neighborhood who have the F Biden flags up on the poles. What message is that sending? The coarseness of our language, the coarseness of our discourse, our inability to express ourselves and to speak in ways that are not just throwing bombs at each other. It's frightening. And what message does this send to the kids? What does the future hold? If look, now these people in their 30s, I'm sure their parents in their 50s are just as bad, probably not worse. But we're building a generation of really frightening people. Every once in a while you'll hear one of these crazy stories come up. Back about 10, 12 years ago, you had that couple from New Jersey who named their kid Adolf Hitler, and named the other 2 kids, what was it, Jocelyn Lynn Aryan Nation, and the other one, Hosalyn Hitler Janine. I'm like, what the heck is this? Now, eventually the state did take those kids away because they were, abusive and all kinds of stuff. But it all happened because these people thought it'd be cute to name their child Adolf Hitler. It'd be cute to go to the local baker and try and get them to put a happy birthday Adolf Hitler on a cake. Because again, it was about attention seeking. This has gone beyond attention seeking. This has gone beyond, hey, look at me. This has gone to the point of an international movement of people who are trying to really tear us apart. And the question is, what kind of a society are we? Are we a society who, we're going to, it's okay. That's their right to indoctrinate their children. Because we're hearing right now, and this is what's going on in Congress right now, there are parental rights bills that we shouldn't have any say in what parents do with their kids. And look, I'm a parental rights guy. I don't want government or anybody else telling me how to raise my children, but there's a moment, there's a place where you're endangering not just your children, but society by creating these kind of, dangerous people. I'm frightened by it for the future of what happens. I was thinking about this kid because I think it was 2009 when the Campbell people out in New Jersey did the whole thing with Adolf. That kid's probably around 17, 18 now. I got to wonder, what kind of future does that kid have? And as I was remembering that case, I went back and looked up the story. The father went to court and in a full Nazi uniform. And his statement was, if they're good judges, if they're good people, they'll look within and not what's on the outside. But here's my problem. What's on the outside is what's on the inside. And the question is, who are we? What kind of a society are we going to be? Are we going to be a society that's opening and welcoming? Are we going to be the kind of a society that says that you can lead your best life? You have the right to do what you want as long as it doesn't infringe on others while protecting the children from, well, I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts. Does the state have an interest in not promoting a Nazi child? A mother who wants her child to be the very best Nazi he can be? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Quick break. Right back.
I'm JD Schulten with Courier News, and I'm here to tell you you're probably getting screwed. As a taxpayer, do you like it when your tax dollar goes to a corporation that has no transparency obligations, no required public audits, no public records, no public meetings, and basically no reporting obligation whatsoever? Oh yeah, and that corporation also gets a blank check. How about it when your government, like a state house, creates a special committee for one bill, and it makes a special rule that anything that passes out of that committee gets to bypass the Appropriations Committee and the Ways and Means Committee, which means 1, less public input, 2, less scrutiny to actually how much this will cost taxpayers. That's what happened this week in the Iowa House with the school vouchers bill. It's not just happening here in Iowa. We're seeing school voucher bills brought in other state legislatures like Oklahoma, Idaho, Kansas, Utah, South Carolina, Texas, and more. What's driving these school voucher bills? You guessed it, money. Last July, there was a Data for Progress poll that showed 71% of Iowans opposed this bill. So what do you do when you're about to pass something extremely unpopular? You run a television ad and try to persuade the general public. And a look behind the curtain and you'll see what the vouchers bill is all about. The ad buy was by a PAC called Iowa for Prosperity. And according to OpenSecrets.org, a nonpartisan nonprofit who tracks money in politics, in 2020, the largest donor to this PAC came from a billionaire hedge fund manager from Florida. And in 2022, the election cycle, the largest donation came from a managing partner at a New York private equity firm. Do you think a billionaire hedge fund manager from Florida or a private equity manager from New York are looking out for the best interest of Iowa students? Or do you think that they'll invest in a corporation that the state will pump hundreds of million dollars and eventually billions of dollars through with little to no accountability? Back in 2016, the National Education Policy Center warned about private equity interest in profiting off of education. Listen, money towards vouchers is money not spent in public education. Our founding fathers made our schools public for a reason.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So corporate America, with the help of their Republican Party lackeys, are about to go on the offensive as predicted. Couple of pieces of legislation that are going to be bouncing around. The stopping, I love this one. Stopping Home Office Work's Unproductive Problems Act, or the Show Up Act. This is going to make sure that no one is allowed in the federal government to stay home and work from home. You have to come to work. None of this laying around in your PJs. There's that. There's also the Freedom for Healthcare Workers Act, which is coming up for a vote. That basically says no more mask mandates. So if you work in a nursing home, you have the freedom, you have the liberty to make your patients sick by not wearing a mask, because that's your freedom. And of course, the Pandemic is Over Act. We've won. Ta-da! Done. There is that. So congratulations. All you had to do was elect a Republican House, and it's over. So there is that. Now, here's the other part of this. Corporate America is really going to try and regain control. And the recession that they've been pushing for is a big part of it. Legislation by Republicans, a big part of it. I look out in California. You may remember we've talked about this Fast Recovery Act. It's the Fast Food Act to make sure that fast food workers, have some say in the workplace. It's really one of the first tries at legislatively bringing on sectorial bargaining into this country to ensure that an industry has a floor, that we use legislation, we use collective bargaining on mass scales between employers, workers, and government to ensure that there are safe working conditions, decent wages, decent all that stuff. The CEO of McDonald's, in an open letter published on January 25th, said basically, it's impossible to run a small business in California because, the thought is it's going to raise wages in the fast food industry. And, some of the thoughts are it's going to make fast food workers make about $22 an hour. Now, in other countries, this happens because we don't have, the massive inequality in wage that we have in this country. And this, McDonald's can't have. Now, what I find interesting is McDonald's is not a small business. They seem like a pretty big business because if you know what the FAST Act is, it only affects, fast food chains that have 100 or more locations in the state. So you've got to be, I don't know, small business is 100. I'm thinking 2 or 3. But this is 100, and they're saying, it's going to be your big chains. It's going to be McDonald's. It's going to be Burger King, Wendy's. It's going to be those, Chipotle, some of those. Because McDonald's got like 14,000 restaurants in the U.S. Not what I would consider a small business. Now he's complaining that this is going to kill small business. It's going to dry up the jobs and all this, and I disagree. What it's going to do is it's going to redistribute the wealth that's created. Because here's the weird thing: our CEO pocketed in 2021 $7.4 million. Now, he put in his pocket $7.4 million. Did not flip one burger, did not drop one basket of fries, did not take one order, did not empty one waste can, did not empty one grease bucket, didn't mop a floor, didn't smile at a customer, did not take abuse from abusive customer, did nothing productive to earn a dollar, but took $7.4 million, or in minimum wage terms, 490 people. He took in 1 year what 490 employees making minimum wage earned that year by doing all those things and making the profit that they're taking on. But it's impossible to run a small business, according to this person. Now, understand, there's going to be millions and millions of dollars in California spent on this referendum that's going to hit right for the presidential election in 2024 because they've got to claw back the power to, crush working people. And this is where the frustration of this moment is. Because we as working people, and I ask this question all the time, what are you? Are you a worker first or are you a consumer first? Sadly, too many of us view ourselves as consumers first. What can I buy? How cheap can I get something? Instead of thinking, it's the chicken or egg, if you will. Do you see yourself as a worker? Should I make a decent wage? Should I have good health care? Should I have good retirement security? Should I have a say? Should I have security? Should I have these things first and then go into the free market? Sadly, we've been trained like Pavlovian dogs. It's all about, what's that Walmart, lower prices, better living. Well, how do you think you get that? You get that by crushing wages. And corporate America has done that in masterful ways over the last couple of decades. And we're going to see it again. This referendum in California is going to be interesting to watch because they're going to spend, like I said, millions of dollars convincing middle-income America that the poor is coming for them. Going to convince someone who's making $22 an hour now that they are better, they are more skilled, they are more dedicated, more loyal, whatever the word's going to be, than those fast food workers who are just teenagers, who are just snot-nosed kids with their first jobs. When the reality is that's not what it is at all. Sadly, since we've lost so much manufacturing, since we've lost so much of our production capacity, those fast food jobs, if you'll remember, go with me in the way back machine. George W. Bush was president. They actually wanted to make fast food jobs production, factory jobs. They wanted to classify making a sandwich the same as building a car. They wanted to make them factory jobs so that they could say, we've got manufacturing jobs. See, now you're manufacturing a pickle on a whole wheat bun. And how's that thing go with the sesame seeds and all that? Yeah, that was what they tried. Now, it didn't work because people go, that's not right. But they're going to play this division game again, and because they're masters at it. They're so good at getting us to look behind us and go, you're not worthy. Instead of reaching back and saying, here's a hand, let's all do better. Now, here's the weird part. Whether you're making 22, whether you're making 15, whether you're making 725, your interests are more aligned between the three of you than you have with the guy making $7.4 million a year. Telling the people who actually do the work, sorry, can't afford that. Now, what's interesting to me is I got a lot of responses from people who, when I put this out on social media, who said, look, there are chains out there that are doing this, that are paying good wages, that are treating their employees well, and make a great product at a competitive price. For me, the bigger part of all of this is, yeah, we want to make sure that the industry pays a wage that people can survive on so that the taxpayers don't have to subsidize these huge corporations. Because that's what this is. Most of those fast food workers are women with children who get subsidies from the state to be able to supplement their income to be able to make it. We're subsidizing multi-billion-dollar industries so that CEOs and presidents can put $7.4 million in their pockets. Instead of saying, no, you pay your own freight. You pay your workers so that they can support themselves and the taxpayer doesn't have to. We're not doing that. And corporate America is afraid of this. For me, it's about time we start undoing some of the damage we've done over the years through bad policy. And one of it is this franchise model. Everything's a franchise. Everything, you get the big conglomerate name, but you don't have to deal with all of the labor implications. You know, McDonald's doesn't own all 14,000 restaurants. McDonald's is a real estate company. They own a lot of land. They own the license. They own the distribution. They don't flip the hamburgers. They don't put the bag out the window, but they collect the cash. And they got people out there who are the franchisees who then can have to go out and have to cutthroat compete. And how do they do that? They do that by cheating their workers. They do that by, you know what, rolling downhill. And who's at the bottom of the hill? The minimum wage worker. So this to me is an opportunity to go, you know what? We don't need 14,000 McDonald's. Maybe we need a couple of McDougal's. Maybe we need, Joe's Restaurant. Maybe we need someone, named a couple of other ones that I'd never heard of. Maybe we have some innovation. Maybe we have some other ways of doing. Maybe we get away from the homogeny of all of these franchises. Here's a thought. Maybe we reimagine an economy where a bunch of fast food workers can then start their own. That's how an economy used to work. Instead of having a behemoth like this who's going to impose their will because they have the economic resource and the economic power to do it, maybe, just a thought, maybe we start thinking about how we empower workers. Now, 2024, a presidential year, this is going to, they're choosing this specifically because they want to play on that anger. Because they're hoping the recession comes. They're hoping that recession goes right into 24. So people are ticked at workers because workers are the ones they're blaming. They're going to blame them. Trust me. All those people wanted unions. They wanted wage increases. All those wage increases causes the prices to go up. Never mind the fact that we know it's the corporations who are gouging our eyes out. But we've got a corporate media who keeps spinning the no. It's those greedy workers. How dare they want to feed their families? How dare they? It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because, as I look at this, this is a good piece of legislation I think can be modeled across the country, if only we had the courage. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We'll take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At The Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right-left or red-blue, when they are and always have been up-down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.